Hello my dear students, my name is Mrs. Mariam Farid. Today we are going to cover chapter 3 in our novel for this year for third prep, A Tale of Two Cities. I'd like only just to remind you that it was written by the greatest novelist Charles Dickens in 1859. In this novel he wanted to talk about the conditions that led up to the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror. We talked last time about the most important characters and a summary of chapter 1 and 2. Let's talk now about a summary of chapter 3. Slide 2. The setting shifts from Dover, England to Saint Antoine. In chapter 1 and 2 we talked about Mr. Lorry and how he accompanied Lucy to see her father to try to restore him to life. Her father, after his long imprisonment, he was staying at Monsieur Devage's house, his servant. Now the setting shifts from Dover, England to Saint Antoine, a poor suburb of Paris. A wine cask falls to the pavement in the street and everyone rushes to it. Men sat on their knees and scoop up the wine that has pooled in the paving stones. Each one in Saint Antoine Street, all the people there were very poor. They tried only to taste wine. Yes, it's muddy wine mixed with the mud in the street, but they wished to taste this wine. They cupped their hands and took from this wine to their mouth. While women soap up the liquid with handkerchiefs and wring them into the mouth of their babies, one man dips his finger into the muddy wine and scrawls the word blood on a wall. Slide 3. The wine shop is owned by Monsieur Devage, a bull-necked man of 30. His wife, Madame Devage, sits behind the counter, watchful of everything that goes on around her. She signals to her husband as he enters the wine shop, alerting him to the presence of an elderly gentleman and a young lady. Devage eyes the strangers, they are Mr. Lorry and Lucy, but pretends not to notice them, speaking instead with three familiar customers, each of whom refers to the other two as Jack. A code name, Jack is a code name that identifies themselves to one another as revolutionaries. Now, you know that Mr. Lorry and Lucy went there to take Dr. Manette, who was staying at Monsieur Devage's house. Slide 4. After Devage directs the men to a chamber on the 5th floor and sends them out, Mr. Lorry approaches from the corner and begs a word with Devage. The men have a brief conversation, and soon Devage leads Lorry and Lucy up a steep, dangerous rise of stairs. They come to a filthy landing where the three men from the wine shop stand staring through chinks in the wall, holes in the wall. Stating that he makes a show of Dr. Manette to a chosen few, to whom the sight is likely to do good. Devage opens the door to reveal a white-haired man busily making shoes. We are talking now about Dr. Manette. And Monsieur Devage lets some men just watch Dr. Manette from some holes in the wall. Slide 5. Some questions. Number 1. What is the significance of the broken cask scene and the word blood which was written on the wall? In this scene, Dickens shows the hunger, poverty, and ignorance of these people. The spilt wine and the word blood, which was written by the tall man Gaspard, and this is a very important name, don't forget, foreshadow what will happen in this same street in a few years. The French Revolution. It points to the bloodbath which will stain the street and all of France. The rough stones of this street, people's hands, feet, mouth, clothes, will be stained with real blood, the blood of nobles and aristocrats. So the red wine symbolizes the blood that will be spilt in the coming revolution. people's behavior symbolizes the dangerous unrest to come. Slide 6, question number 2, it's a quotation. It's not my problem. The people from the market did it. Let them bring another. Comment. Don't forget that answering this kind of questions, you have to mention who said this, to whom, and why. If you could say the place, it would be great. These words were said by the owner of the wine shop, Monsieur Devage, to those who were carrying the wine cask to the shop at Saint Antoine Street. The cask was broken and filled the street with wine. The poor people tried to drink the muddy wine. Even it's muddy, but they wished to taste the wine for the first time in their lives. 3. Who was Monsieur Devage? What was he like? In what way was he connected to Dr. Manette? He was a strongly built and bull-necked man of 30. He was dark, with good eyes, good looking. He was such a determined person with no sign of any weakness. He was the old servant of Dr. Manette. Slide 7, number 4. Courage, dear miss. The worst will be over in a moment. Comment. Who said this to whom? Very important to be mentioned. These words were said by Mr. Lorry to Lucy Manette when they were outside the room where her father was locked up. Mr. Lorry saw that Lucy was trembling and her face expressed anxiety. He was trying to comfort her and give her courage to pull herself together. Because the worst was over and now it was time for business, I mean to try to recall her father to life, she was expected to give her father love, care, and restore him to health. Slide 8, number 5. What did Devage do before opening the locked room of Dr. Manette, and why? He struck twice or 3 times upon the door and made noise with the keys so as to warn the person inside that one would open the door. And because Dr. Manette was used to that noise from the jailer, don't forget that Dr. Manette was imprisoned for 18 years in the Bastille. And this noise was very familiar for him. And the last question in this slide, 105 North Tower, comment. These words were said by Dr. Manette to Monsieur Devage and Mr. Lorry and to anyone who would ask him about his name. That was the number of the solitary cell in which Dr. Manette had been imprisoned for 18 years. And that was the name he knew himself by during his stay there. Because you know, there they wouldn't ask him about his name, they would ask him about the number of his cell. That you can say, he couldn't remember his name, but he remembered the number of his cell. Slide 9, number 7. She put her head on my shoulder that night when I was called away. She was afraid for me. No, no, you are too young. It can't be. Comment. These words were said by Dr. Manette to Lucy in their first meeting, I mean to his daughter. She reminded him of her mother and of the night he was being taken away. He was sitting with his wife. She had laid her head on his shoulder when he was called out. She was afraid of his going, though he had no fears. He then found some hair on his shoulder, which he kept, and this was the only thing that gave him some hope. And you can say that this hair which he found on his shoulder reminded him of his wife. Thanks a lot for your great attention. Stay safe and goodbye.